To order, it's September 19th, 2023, Tuesday. It's 9 a.m. We'll do the pledge, first of all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, you have the agenda. Is there anything you had to add or with the agenda changes? Excuse me. Now I look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the motion carried. Next, go into the budget hearing then. Open up the budget hearing. Is there anybody from the public that has any comments for the budget? Anyone from the public, any comments from the budget, county budget? Any comment from the public on the county's budget? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing then. And go to the next item is our discussion of our county budget for 2024. Still, you want to go with department heads that are here present? We do those first, or?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I think Steve, you're here first. Do you want to go ahead first? Do you have any comment?
Thank you, Chairman Franchuk, Commissioner Steve Josephson, County Planner. You have in front of you the proposed budget for the 2024 fiscal year. Commissioner Franchuk and I met and discussed this budget. There are no additional changes, no additional staff, no additional equipment. It's basically the same as next year. The city did indicate they want me to come back halftime, so they've got a placeholder in their budget, just waiting to see what the county commission decides to do. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Joseph on the budget?
Just a quick question. The current format is we incur the payroll and we get reimbursed from the city. But if you take the city and the county lines together for this particular year of 23, it comes to 83,000 and some change. But there's a disparity on the 24 proposed budget. Is that because of increased responsibility for the city, or is that just a, follow me there?
I think that's just reflecting. You mean in terms of the wages, or?
Well, yeah, so the reimbursement from the city, the approved for 23 is 41,800. Proposed is 61,000.
61,000.
So I can
no,
actually
no, no.
answer
Go
this
ahead.
question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So the 41.8 was half the salary. I was unaware that the city also reimburses not only half the salary, but also, some of the benefits and everything else. So that's why I kind of corrected it to reflect for the upcoming, because we actually wind up, if you see in 2022 actual 57, that's way more than just half his salary.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So we basically underestimated on the 23 budget, not
Right.
estimated.
I was just using the salary, not including the benefits, what have you. So
So Steve's benefits come from the city or the county?
they come from the county, but they reimburse
But
us
they reimburse us.
half. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was,
Any other questions? Okay. I guess-
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
thank you.
okay. Next. Do I have a person, Pierce, you want to come up next? I see you're in the human resources.
Good morning, Joetta Piercy, Human Resources. My budget is fairly simple. It is a department of one, and this year we discussed travel and training. And then I think we're going to get into a discussion further about that, but Karen and I talked about perhaps having a budget for for employees to be able to go to more national-wide training or out-of-state training. So in the end, we're not changing my travel and training budget at all, or the dues. And then that's basically, the tuition reimbursement was a new policy that we put into place last year. Nobody applied for that this past year, so we will just carry over that budget item this year, and we'll put it out to staff if they would like to apply for that again.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll do the recorder's office. Kim?
Morning, Commissioners. Kim Cassian, Stark County Recorder. Not a whole lot has changed other than Andrea going full-time from the part-time to full-time, and so that added a little bit extra. But other than that, not much has changed in my budget.
Any questions? No, okay, thank
Okay.
you. Emergency management, you want to go next, Ms. Decker?
Good morning, Commissioners. Lana Decker, Emergency Management. My budget's a little bit more complicated, but we do have the opening for the deputy position, which is open right now and looking to be filled. We can, speaking with previous emergency manager Shauna Davenport, she said we don't pay for workers' compensation, so that line can be crossed out. Which one are we on?
We definitely use that line. I
Okay.
think that, yeah.
Okay.
It's not really about paying, I think some of it is what is paid out of that department budget, but then also, if you notice like that negative amount for 2023, it's because you get money back into your budget
Yep.
from when we get the refund checks.
Okay.
So,
And then as far as dues and trainings, we may have to look at possibly increasing those slightly. Dispatch is full, they are full staff now, so we may have to look at potentially increasing some training for them, and then also bringing in an assistant, we may have to look at raising the training just slightly to pay for going to training and also online trainings potentially. And then we are over on a couple, but that seems like it's just a expense possibly for this year. We're not really looking at seeing that again in the next year. So if you guys have any questions on that, the emergency services budget.
So for training, we're at 3,500, what were you thinking?
Possibly
5,000?
4,000.
4,000?
Yeah, just an additional 500.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
I think I have one more.
Oh, you have one more, oh, your 911,
Yeah, I have
okay.
the 911.
Okay,
Okay, again, I'll have to call the city about the dispatcher salary, to see what they're estimating for, but, salaries and budget for the next year. Possibly looking at, again, increasing the training for dispatch, possibly by another 500, just to compensate for the amount of people they have. And then I was informed by, the state that the assistant salary is no longer supplemented by the EMPG grant, so that is now only my salary is supplemented by the EMPG grant, so we don't get compensated for that salary anymore. So that could just be a heads up for the commission to be aware of. We no longer get compensated for the assistant salary.
So are you saying that we need to move that? Or your EMP, so you're talking about your emergency services one?
Yeah,
EMP
just that grant money that we
grant?
get in quarterly. So now only my salary is compensated for that up to 45%. I think we can keep the assistant salary, split it up, just because talking to Shauna, it sounds like if you consolidate the salaries into one budget, you tend to go over.
Yeah, if you put all of, yeah, we had to divide it up percentage-wise to make E911 not in the red is
Yep.
where that was at.
So I think you could keep it where it's at.
Okay.
What's the budget impact of losing that grant on the assistant? Do you know, in dollars?
Dollar-wise, no, I don't.
It's a 45%?
It was up to, mine's about 45%, so I'd imagine theirs the same.
I would say,
17,000? Or what?
yeah, so in here, she told me what the grant amount was, because you have to remember that 2023 actual, as of June 30th, that 46,000, we still have a couple more months of that. So that's where that 68,000, so that impact is gonna be about 26,000.
26?
Up to.
Up to,
I mean,
yeah.
it just depends how many
Right.
hours are sent in, but in this new budget, I did put in her lowered amount. So that way it would reflect.
Explain that again in your proposed 24 number,
That
Reflected.
42,773
Yeah.
is reflecting the decrease in that grant.
got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next, you want to do the weed board?
Travis, if you want to look at your,
Oh, you even have it up here
yeah,
for me?
it's
So
probably in the back, because yours is one of the last ones.
you hide me in the back, huh?
Yeah, you're one of the, you're the own entity there.
All right, found it. Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Some of the big changes you're going to see on here will be on the revenue side. You're going to have on the miscellaneous column $15,000 put in there, and that's for the potential sale of a old spray truck that we have. So that's going to go into the revenue column there. This printout doesn't have the numbers in there for. Oh, right here it is.
It does, yep.
Looking at the wrong column. And then the other big thing to take away on this will be your spray crew salaries. Last year we had this calendar year we had $105,000 budgeted for that. 2024 we put in $70,041.60 because this year we hired fewer people. It worked just fine, so there's no reason to hire those extra folks. So that's going to bring that down significantly. Most of the other things stayed the same. Equipment purchase should say, what do you have on yours?
20,000.
That should be 40,000.
Purchase, yeah, it should be 40,000.
Oh, maybe I plugged that one in wrong.
What line item is that?
The last one.
The last one on the
Equipment
first
purchase.
page.
Equipment purchase, yeah. it
That's
should be
about the fifth one from the bottom.
So that line item should read $40,000. This year we need to purchase, or 2024, we would need to purchase a spray system to put on that new truck that we purchased in the 2023 budget. So that would be 40,000 there. And the if you look at the final here,
So you'll need to add 20,000 to that final.
Right.
Yeah.
So 523?
523, 559.
so yeah, that would be the 523. So with the revenue of 564, the 523, and then if the general fund transfer in covers your FICA and stuff like that, then that puts us ahead by quite a bit there, so. Any comments on that, Paul?
No, that was the only change, that equipment thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Just saw that myself.
So with weed, you know, general fund transfer in, because I didn't know what the board would approve. So I took that, I think originally it was under the revenue line and I kind of moved it off on its own because it's not technically revenue. 'cause
Yep,
it's
that's
from
not
us to
considered a
another.
revenue anymore, correct?
Yeah, and so I just wanted to move that just so that it would stop coming up as revenue in our accounts and do that correctly. And so there was a couple of them that I had to do it that way. But I think what we talked about is we would like to get you up to somewhat of a reserve balance because you went from being kind of in the red to an appropriate reserve balance by the end of 2023. And then we wouldn't necessarily have, once we get to that reserve balance, we wouldn't necessarily have to transfer in general funds.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the way you have it proposed, your projected reserve balance right now at the end of the year would be 260. And you would be reducing that potentially during the year 24 by 42,000, is that right?
So we're trying to get, if we keep going we want to reach that reserve amount by 2026. Sorry.
The 75%, is that what we're talking about here?
We're just trying to get something because we were working in the red and now we are in the green. But I would say by 2026, we won't need to transfer any more general fund to kind of get that so that they have a little bit of a cushion in their account that's acceptable and within the 75% of appropriation.
And I said reduce, I meant increase. You would increase that reserve by the 41,000.
Yes, basically that's just adding to get, well, overall, it would actually, your revenue expected with your general, you know, we would actually be, based on this budget proposed, we'd be increasing that reserve by about $100,000 in a year.
Well, if you have estimated revenue of 564 and estimated expenses of 523
That's not including the general fund transfer in.
Yeah.
of the 47.5.
Yeah, that extra 47 would
Got
be
it.
added to that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So they're almost ready to fully fund themselves and be at their reserve if we keep going 2 more years with that. So.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next to do the county agent, Mr. Fraley.
Good morning. Before you look at the budgets, I do have one announcement. Miss Holly Tooley did have her baby Saturday. So, little baby girl. So, came into Adeline May. Adeline May. I do not know any other specific details outside of, how big it was or any of that kind of stuff. Just
That's all that's important.
everybody is healthy and everybody went home. So I'm here to answer your questions on the extension budget.
Anybody have any questions?
Kurt, I did go ahead and add in your salary, parent educator line and parent educator operation line. You can, there's a copy for you right there if you would like to take a look.
Well, I've got the one that I sent to you,
Yep.
that I'm looking at, so.
Okay, so I added those lines in and carried them across. Those are the amounts that.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Those would be the big changes. The parent educator program that, I believe back in August when we brought Deb Thayer in to explain that program and, what they're doing. And, that's basically a federally funded program and grant funded, and those funds are being stagnated, decreasing. And so they've asked the counties to help pick up some of those shortfalls, the Region 8 counties that she serves.
Any questions on the county agent budget? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna do the state's attorneys.
I think my budget's pretty straightforward. As far as transcripts and witness fees, we were over this year. That is one of those line items that I really am never gonna be able to give you a good idea on what it's gonna be. It's just gonna depend on the cases that come in and whether we need to do depositions and bring witnesses in and things like that. One line item that I did add was evidence testing. We have seen an increase in cases where the North Dakota State Lab just at this point isn't able to always test our evidence, whether it be some firearms testing or fingerprints. Sometimes there's DNA samples that, because of the quantity, have to be sent out to much bigger and labs that have kind of advanced or more sensitive equipment. And that can eat up quite a bit of our budget. So I did add that. I know that the state lab is working pretty hard on getting some of those things, like the firearms and the latent fingerprints back, but when I talked to them, I did reach out to them. They said they weren't quite sure when it would be available. So I did add that in until that occurs. So other than that, I think most of mine is pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Any questions for the state's attorney's budget? See no questions on that? Okay, thank you. We'll do the victim witness budget and
Sure. I can explain part of it, and then I might have Katie come up and explain a little bit of the grant portion, because she's much more familiar with that. But two things that we did add into our budget, or one thing that we did add into our budget, is I am asking for a significant raise for Katie that's outside of the $1.25. She is now the department head, and she is running that department by herself. And so I think that is appropriate. And then the other, maybe we didn't. We were going to put some training, I think, in here. And maybe it got put somewhere else. Katie, do you have anything that you wanted to add on the budget as far as the grants?
you step up to the podium, please.
Good morning. So as of right now, we don't have the final number on the grant award. They were supposed to have it this past week. I spoke with the administrator of the DOCR VOCA grant, and they are running behind about a week. They're expected to give us the award amount on the 25th. I have submitted for $138,000. Typically, we don't get that. We usually get probably $20,000 to $30,000 less. But that is the amount I've submitted for. With all of the changes in the program, it's an appropriate amount, so we're hoping that we can get as much from the federal grant as possible. But other than that, the only really significant change in the programming besides staff is we're implementing a hygiene pantry. into the program where when victims come in and they need hygiene items or their children need items, that I will be fully stocked to be able to provide that. And that was included in the grant. Hopefully that program can be utilized countywide within the next year or two. So that's really the only significant change so far since I've taken over in March of this year.
Taxable travel and meals, I think that's where we put the travel. There's definitely some very good training out there. Most of it's not in North Dakota. We are working really hard Katie's working really hard to really, she's overhauling the office, and she's expressed some interest in training, and I think that's a really good thing, especially just with we just see different cases, and different victims need different things, and so we did add that training in there, and I think that's important for her to be able to go to, 1 or 2 a year, so.
You guys stay current on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the Marcy's law, it does change consistently every year. There's new federal laws added, things taken away, guidelines added, and it's important that we're in compliance with the Marcy's federal laws for the victims, just so there's no litigation later that comes back on us.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Al, you want to go next, or is your budgets?
Morning, Commissioners. Where do you want to start, County Road or unorganized or County Road Bridge? I think you got the worksheet that we made out, how I come up with these numbers for the specific projects we got. We got 4 low water crossings which should be a good thing once we get them going. They're 100% funded, so that won't affect our budget. Interstate engineering, we got that bridge at South Art, our share of that. The Butterfield Bridge, that's over north of Richton, that's coming up. We got engineering for the roundabout over on 116 and Highway 10. Our biggest project here is probably the chip seal on Highway 10. Did you want me to read these numbers, or you've got them in front of you? Or okay. And then some of the local grading projects, we got 114th Avenue, we estimate 340, and grading on 109th and 41st. And as far as the big items, I guess this will be in the county road. So any questions on county road and bridge? We got some money plugged in for gravel. So any questions on that?
Do you have any questions? Okay.
Okay, now when we get into county unorganized, that's kind of where we operate all of our, lots of different equipment purchases. And I guess our biggest ticket item on equipment purchases is the motor graders. They'll be coming in here in probably 9 to 10 months. Our trade difference was $1.5 million, and we got a couple new semis coming. We don't know when they're gonna get here, but they should be here in '24. They're $286,000, so. And then I put another $300,000 in the budget for if something we need to replace along the way unexpectedly, so. And the rest of it is just basically our supplies and vehicle expenses kind of getting out of hand. Anything you repair, if anybody took anything to repair shops, you know that it's pretty costly. Fuel, we've upped our fuel budget to $510,000. Fuel just keeps crawling up, so other than that, it's not much more than our maintenance and operations here. Anybody got any questions on that?
There were some light-duty expenses for new light-duty vehicles.
Pardon?
Was there some new light-duty vehicles?
They're gonna come out of this year's budget yet. They're supposed to be here unless the strike's gonna get them stumbled along the way, so they should be covered under this year's budget. Now, other than that, just the 2 trucks and the motor graders for next year.
Anybody have any questions on that? On the county roads?
I don't
Whatever it is.
have any questions on his proposed budget. I just think at some point, probably not now, we need to have a discussion on how we handle these grants and distributions from you know, the oil and gas and highway distribution to provide some consistency. This is a good year for us in that regard, but some years it goes down and then it affects the ability to perform the duties. So probably not today, but I think at some point we should have that discussion, so.
Okay, if you're aware of, you know, the oil and gas, we used to get some, we didn't, then we were into prairie dog buckets. Well, now we're kicked out of the prairie dog buckets, so now we're back in the oil producing counties. So, yeah, like Neil said, we need to get some consistency to, you know, back when the oil was really flowing, we were getting all kinds of grants and surge funding, and that has now kind of gone away. So, yeah, that'd be a good idea to get some consistency back into our funding.
Okay, any other questions? Not then go to the highway distribution then.
I guess on that, whatever the commission is okay with for giving the raises this year, I don't have any comments or concerns. I know over the years, the commission's been good to the guys to keep them employed and kind of following up with the time. So I guess whatever you guys come up with is fine with me, and I think our department will agree.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Not then we'll move on to public safety. Sheriff Lee.
All right, if you will refer to ours here, bear with me, I didn't bring my glasses again. The salaries are not true to Hoyle here, so we're actually having, we just did our performance-based evaluation, so we'll have that hopefully done Thursday. We'll meet as a administration and figure out what those salaries are gonna be exactly. Obviously, they will fall under the one, whatever parameters as those categories are. Changes are indicated in green on here. You'll see that we requested a second detective. I gave you guys the information about that at the last meeting, how we're really getting bombarded at that position. With that being said, we also received information this week that we will be losing one to the Guard for the majority of next year, starting October 1st of this year. So obviously there'll be some money savings there out of our budget, not in the way we want to. If you refer to page 2, the 8,000 for corporal promotions, I actually have that figured out of the salaries, so that's not an extra expense. It would be just coming out of the raise, whatever we're allotted for raises. And then the other two you'll see are the canine supplies and the animal impounds. Obviously, we get $12,000 apiece from Richardson and South Hart cities. That money is meant to cover miscellaneous things, including an animal impound. So we've just been taking that out of, Nicole, where's that been coming out of? Animal impounds? Office supplies, or, okay, yeah, so we wanted to be a little more specific in our budget where we're taking that out of. And then you'll see some minor increases in other places to include, like Al was saying, vehicles and vehicle expenses. Questions?
Any questions for the sheriff? Okay. But you missed that it's here. Got everybody covered. You want to do your budget audit or something?
Sure. So for my department budget, I am, after some discussions with the commissioners that are on my portfolio, I would like to raise my deputy auditor to 75,500. And then as far as anything else, you know, it's kind of just all staying the same. I decreased the travel 500 out of my auditor budget because some is put into election, and the dues are about the same. Training, you know, that can be kind of used for the training. I kind of use my travel, my training, and my election stuff to get all the training that's needed during election, which I'm sure there will be a lot for presidential. So other than that, there's really nothing special on mine.
Any questions on the auditor's budget? Not, then we'll go to the next.
We're just gonna take consulting wages out of there, because you really don't need that anymore. I mean, it sort of is out of there already.
I did take it out.
Okay.
Yep, that's why it's in
why
red
it's
too.
in red, yeah.
Yep, that means it's gone. And then the other one I had is elections. And
Next, we do the custodians budget, and Mike.
Were we gonna go to elections next?
Yeah, so we're gonna finish, are we gonna?
do you want me to do elections?
Yeah,
We can do
let's-
that.
yeah, let's do
You
that.
want to do elections now? Okay, we can go that. Sorry, Mike. Sure. Okay, elections then.
So for election and it being presidential, obviously I am a little bit antsy about what extra stuff they're going to have us do. But I do want to increase my election worker salaries from $15 an hour to $17 an hour. It's not always easy to get people to work elections, and it does give a little bit incentive if they know that, you know, they are getting trained and paid for that training. The other thing that I just increased the workers line to 54,000. That is for primary and the general. And then we do get reimbursed for some of the election costs from, you know, the cities and schools, entities. I know the state's attorney's office was gonna look over the JPA agreements, hopefully before the next election, because there probably needs to be some changes there. They're about 10 years old. Yeah, I think I gave it all to Jim. Yeah. And then equipment maintenance, just a general estimate on that. I mean, they do come in and do some updating, what have you, and publications, of course. Yeah, I try not to go overboard on the budget. I just don't really know how the presidential is going to be next year, so.
I have a question. The 15 to 17 an hour, is that all exclusive? There's no benefits attached to that or anything?
There's no benefits. They're just like a temp employee type situation. Yeah, we definitely don't do benefits on people that just work elections.
Any other questions on the elections budget? Okay, now we'll go to custodian budget. And
Okay, just have our wages increases here. And then we did decrease the social service building. See there? And
Is that the
everything
third
else.
line item?
That'd be down under budget lines, social services, Stark County.
Oh, okay.
You decreased it.
Oh, did I say increase? I meant
thought so.
decrease. We decreased. Sorry.
And what caused that?
We just budgeted high for the first few years.
Okay.
And then now that
Oh, it's
we're kind
reality.
of going into the fourth year of that building, we can start bringing that down to a reasonable
Good.
amount. So should come down hopefully a little bit more over the next few years. Just want a good medium where we're not stuck.
You don't want to
money,
get stuck
but-
in a corner either, so.
Yeah, but start bringing that down.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you. Next, don't have the tax director, we want to go with the tax directors, but their Director of Tax Equalization. Is there anything, and there's no really changes on that one, is there?
Just on the proposed department head, I know salary line for her assistant. Yeah, so she did want to move her up over the proposed $1.25. And then I think all the other line items were pretty much the same.
And that assistant's a part-time position?
I think she works an average of 30. What was her average, Lana? 30? It's about 80%. 34 maybe.
Okay, any other questions on the Director of Tax Equalization budget? Not. So I guess go in line what we had in the list here, go the law enforcement maintenance. Is there any changes to that one or from 2023's?
Second.
Karen, excuse me, we actually discussed this just a little bit when we met.
Here we go. Yep.
So we've actually got dispatch in law enforcement maintenance, which I know we're just trying to find a place for dispatch. But does it really belong in LEC maintenance or not, is the question.
Now, I will say that even though dispatchers is under there, it's not actually under the same fund number. If you see 4213, 4214. So I could probably just do like what I do for like the planning ones or even custodian budget and just kind of like bump it down away from the total of that fund. That is one idea. But yeah, I just don't think anybody knew where to put it. And it just wound up.
Okay.
So it doesn't get forgotten about, I guess.
But we have dispatchers also in the 911 budget.
Yes.
So is that over and above? I mean, are these two separate numbers or the same number in two different budgets?
It's not the same number, it's both numbers together. 911 can't support the full
Yeah.
dispatch amount.
Got it.
Yep.
So the 4240310 and 4214390 are combined
For dispatching.
for 911 and
4240, well, okay, so 4240 is a 911 specific line item that comes out of our wireless revenue, like our phone revenue, 911 phone revenue. And so it has to be in its own line item, but like 911's budget cannot support dispatch being at $400,000. So they can only support like 200. And so this is basically the rest. Yep.
Any other questions?
Well, we've got actually $72,000 proposed in the 24 budget for capital improvements. Much like 22 and 23, or the amended 23. And Bernie, I guess we know what we're up against there. All of a sudden, just a little update. So we have significant, I've mentioned this term, we've got aging infrastructure over there at the LEC building. And we know that we've had some water problems. I think they're pretty well documented.
Been a plumbing problem for a while.
Yeah, we've had water problems over there at the LEC, and they're well documented, and the sheriff's department has been kind of catching the brunt of it, unfortunately. So we are actually currently we are trying to get a consultant in to basically give us an estimate of a complete repair or replacement of the plumbing in the jail portion of the LEC building. What we found so far is it's basically old cast iron plumbing, and it's aging. It's 40 years old and it's starting to fail, and we continue to put Band-Aids on it. It's just, I think it's getting to the point where we've met or reached critical mass, and we're going to have very expensive repair there. I mean, I think that $72,000 could potentially, I mean,
I think it might end up low.
Yeah, and I think it's
very much so.
the repair cost, you know, there's also could be a health cost involved in that stuff with mold in the walls and constant water and.
I mean, it's just come time where we're going to have to actually bite the bullet here and actually spend some money on repairing that plumbing system. And that's just a portion of it. We know that the HVAC system is also, you know, to continue to Band-Aid that as well. So that building's going to need a little TLC in '24, and we're not there. We don't know a number. We don't have a full assessment, but if complete plumbing repair, you know, I imagine it's no different than repairing anything else. These days, it's going to be pretty expensive repair, and I believe $72,000 is going to be quite light.
That might be just for one unit.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I don't know how many units are up there, but they're gonna do one cell at a time.
yeah. And we're going to try to keep the jail open, obviously, as we do this, and we'll phase it, but.
Then we might have
so-
to be moving prisoners from one place to another for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what that number is, but 72,000, I'm gonna guess, is gonna be light for capital improvements for 2024.
Do you have a consultant already identified?
Well, we've got a little bit of an email chain going. We initially had Central take a look at it, but what we're trying to do is hire a consultant. Central is obviously a contractor, and I think we've trying to push it to Prairie Engineering to get in there and actually give us a full assessment. And so we don't have a confirmation that they're willing to do this just yet, but that's the route we're taking right now.
Any other questions on the law enforcement maintenance budget? Okay,
So maybe on that same subject, we might want to talk about the LEC budget, because that's using our capital projects levy. And we can kind of talk about where that is at.
Well, yeah, or the jail, county jail, you mean?
Yes.
County jail. Yeah, I actually had a question there too. County jail. County jail. Actually had a couple of things there. I mean, we have Sunrise Youth Bureau listed as an expense item under county jail, which I'm 100% in favor of Sunrise Youth Bureau. I'm just not sure that they fit in this budget. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but the monies that we have in this fund are levied via statute, and I believe that the expenses need to qualify to be in that budget. And I'm throwing it out there. I'm not sure 100% that Sunrise actually qualifies as an expense under county jail.
So that levy number that, you know, the jail does come out of, and we call county jail, is actually our county capital projects levy.
Yes.
And so it's not just jail. And so we can take Sunrise Youth Bureau and stuff out of there, because it is the capital projects levy.
Yeah, that's what the question is Sunrise qualify under capital projects? And I think we've looked into this just a little bit, and I'm just, you know, like I said, I fully want to fund Sunrise Youth Bureau. I'm just not sure it qualifies there. And as far as that goes, the paramedic, the JPA paramedic for Billings County, does that belong in there as well?
Well, the JPA paramedic line is probably going to wind up going away, because it's included with our contract with them, with Billings County, for the amount that we're doing. so we just get one overall bill as far as that goes. So that line will probably be going away anyways. I'm just waiting to confirm on that before I take it out completely.
Where would it go?
Well,
We won't have to.
'Cause it's
we
already-
still have to fund it, don't
we
we?
do, but we're funding the Billings County, that's in a different budget. That is in, let me see here.
That'd be like the rural fire district and all that kind of stuff. Similar.
Yeah, but we're not actually, it's not under its own levy. Let me find it. I put it in one of these. So it's listed as under the general fund, and I think initially we had it. Let me bring it up here. Planner, States Fair. Because it actually wound up being way less, because they bill us at the end of the year.
Oh, is it the ambulance service for Belfield? or not?
Yes, do you see that?
Under general fund and or expenses.
Okay, so that's where it's budgeted in, is from the general fund, and I believe we took it out of, well, we would have just taken it out of our general fund last year, once we got the amount, because we won't get the amount for 2023 until probably January 2024.
We've got proposed, well, 2023 approved was 290, am I looking at the right thing?
Yes, you
290,000?
are, and it actually wound up being much less when we got the actual bill.
Yeah, 23, yeah, it was 170 actual for
Mhm.
23, well, that's 23's actual,
'Cause-
22's actual is 20,000.
Well,
We did.
yep, so, we didn't go, last year would have been the first full year that we would have covered in January of 2023. Cause they basically go the entire year, and then they give us, an amount in January for the previous year on how much we need to reimburse them, cause they don't know how much that cost is gonna be for the Stark County one. And it actually wound up being much lower than what they anticipated, so.
So does the 40,000 need to be in the county jail, though?
No, I'm guessing that that amount is now, it's included in with that, agreement with Billings County.
Okay, so we're gonna remove it from the county jail
Yes.
budget. Okay, good. And then going back to the Sunrise thing, I mean, where else can it go? I don't really know where else we could put it. I mean, obviously, I think, well, at least I'm in favor of funding them for the 219,000, but,
They get Sunrise usually gets 1 mil.
yeah.
And that's where that number's coming from, but I do know that, I mean, Sunrise, a lot of it is troubled youth, isn't it? So it does fall under our,
Well, it's not jail.
Was it a detention center kind of, or
It isn't, and that's the problem. There's no, it's not a detention center.
they come and go freely?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm open to ideas to where else to put it, in the general fund, I assume, obviously somewhere. But, I mean, even just for audit purposes, you would think that all the expenses coming out of that fund have to be qualified, right? Because you are levying for it.
I'm levying for our county capital projects, yeah.
projects.
Could it go under public safety under our general fund, or?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to move it over, that's totally okay with me.
It's just, what it'll alleviate is the end of the year, because we always, seems like there's a shortfall in county jail. We always having to put more money into it because,
No, actually, county jail has been carrying a balance. Because I think you're thinking of the jail as its own entity, And that's our capital projects
Separate.
levy that the county jail, their portion just comes out of there. Yep. And so they've actually, that balance right there, they've actually carried a balance over $1 million every year in that fund. But it's not the jail's money, it's our capital projects money.
Well, I
Yeah.
understand that, but it's still, I mean, like I said, I'm just wondering if Sunrise actually qualifies an expense underneath that fund or that budget.
The state auditors haven't said anything about it, but if you guys want to move it, we certainly can.
Well, I think we'd be looking for a recommendation on how to best handle that. And that doesn't necessarily have to be today, but I would say do some research and make a
Instead of,
recommendation.
and you want it, because it's either that or it's going to be in the general.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what Paul's trying to get to is if in fact we have a big pay, bill up at the LEC and part of that may come from this fund as the capital fund, then maybe, let's figure out how to get there. And whether or not Sunrise is here or another one, like I said, I'd look to a recommendation, so.
Okay, I will double check on it, and if you guys want to move it over, we can move it over.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Move on to the next budget then, and information technology. Is there any changes to that budget?
I can answer any questions.
Elena, I do have one, and you might have to do some research on that as well. When we started with the consolidated arrangement, they had made recommendations because a lot of our hardware, our equipment was outdated, software was outdated, and those kind of things. And I think Bernie would know, and Paul's kind of on there now as well. But my question comes to, it was kind of a 3-year plan. We're at the end of that 3-year plan. And so we have 130,000 in there. What's that covering now if we've done a lot of?
Norm, we're on a 4-year rotation on our equipment.
4 years, okay.
And so that basically, replacing equipment, updating software and stuff like that, it's expensive, and it's
Yeah.
basically where it falls in.
I actually asked them to give us, we have a schedule, right, for 24, but we don't have a number. So I've asked them to give us a number so we can, when we're in budget season here, it would be nice to know. And as well as the contract. We don't have a 24 contract in front of us yet.
We should.
Yeah, but that's forthcoming. I'm hoping here in the next day or two. So we've plugged a couple numbers in here that we just really don't know what they are yet, but we should have them soon, I would think.
So I think some of the biggest changes, we were looking at adding a line that was IT service, current through consolidated, that's outside of the contract. So we would know what the outside of the contract labor stuff was. And then also updating the computers updates line to computers and hardware and having a line for that. And then adding a line for software and licensing so that that's easier to break down.
Yep.
Okay. And then state's attorneys, Armor, Secure Cloud would be moving to the consolidated line.
And that might be going away at some point. I think that I'm going to be able to do a lot of that discovery process with that new case management system that I have coming in, but they're building it right now. So we should probably leave it for now, but I have a feeling that we won't be using Armor's cloud system coming up.
Okay, because I put it over with consolidated because I was told that you were.
We'll probably be using it through the end of the year, but as far as next
For
year, I'm just not quite
2024?
sure.
Okay. So
So
maybe that's a question.
That will be a question, yeah.
And it's really tough. I mean, the prices on the equipment and the software, it's just constantly is ballooning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're looking at a couple increases in the budget. I think that's just to compensate for the anticipated increasing fees and licensing, so.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, thank you. And it's Veteran Service Officer's not here. Is there any changes on that budget? Any discuss on that? Anybody have any questions on that one?
This new oh yeah, because we have those new counties in there, okay.
Okay, no questions on that. We'll move on then to county parks.
Is she on the line?
Lisa, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, any
perfect.
comments on your budget then?
The only thing I'll comment on, you guys have the budget proposal that I presented at our budget meeting, and so I emailed that out to everybody. But I will ask if you guys could all talk into your microphones, because I can only hear 2 or 3 of you. If you have any questions for me on that. And I can go through the information that I had requested on there. Basically was the repairs to the motorsports park that I presented at our last park board meeting. We'll have to get some final numbers here, which I expect this week. And then the Lakeview Park, to do something with that. We're proposing just to put up a small play set for some of the younger kids, maybe an overlay on the concrete on the tennis side. I'm requesting in special funding to do the shell of the building for the fairgrounds community events building, so that we can get that started. It is booked for 5.5 months, and so if we get that at least up and going, we can bring some revenue to the city of Dickinson and to Stark County. There's some camera needs out at the Speedway motor cross track. Submitted for some approval there.
Lisa, I have a quick question for you. This
There's
is
also for the
Oops,
4A covered area, I'd like to put up there, and Commissioner Marsh had said that somebody was going to contact me about potentially wanting to donate to build a covered area for the 4-H kids, but I have not heard from anybody, so therefore it is in my budget to request that. I had received a grant from Rough Rider Electric in the amount of $5,000, so that offsets the total estimated cost for that. And that would eliminate us renting a tent for anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000, $8,000 every year, and throwing that money down the tube for a week's worth of events. And we'd have it for multiple uses. And right now for the fairgrounds and events park, we are in the phase 3. As you all know, that we bid that restroom facility tomorrow at 10:30. That bid opening will happen, so we'll know where that funding is at that point. But I do have the ARPA funds for at least half of that, with anticipated cost. And I guess for salary-wise, we have taken and proposed a move in the person that's helping do the facility maintenance at the parks. And so to move that out of the road department's budget, because it really truly belongs in my budget under county parks, since that's the majority of what that person is doing right now. I do believe that we could make it a non-benefited seasonal type position, and therefore that's what we have added to the budget. Karen, you have that in front of them as well, I believe, right?
Yep, I have a line in green set up for a salary county park intern for 18,000.
Yep. And basically that would cover the months of operation that we are currently doing right now for the outdoor facility. And it'll cover basically from that April 15th to, October 1st or somewhere in there, whenever they would, if it's a school person or whatever, go back to school or whatever happens there.
Commissioner Messer, did
And
you have a
that's really
question?
it, if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, just a quick question, Lisa. On the operational part of your budget, the bottom four lines, you show some proposed budget expenses for example, Lakeview Park, you have 10,000 in there, and then under the bottom section, which is the special project area, you have Lakeview Park at 60,000. Is that like a wish list of 60 and you're gonna do 10,000 or bring a proposal to spend 10,000 in some fashion in front of us at a later date?
Yeah, so what that is typically it's maintenance, weed spraying, any repairs, damages that happen on the top part of it. And then the bottom portion is what I'm requesting to add some playground equipment and actually make it a park because it's so dilapidated that it's almost embarrassing to even call it a park because it's really not.
Okay, thank you.
And that's to add the playground equipment and potentially resurface that tennis court if that can be done, to be able to make it an actual park for the citizens.
So the Lakeview Estates Park line for 10,000 in your regular operating, that's like the yearly maintenance type things, correct?
Yes.
And then the 40,000 is
Yes.
to actually put in the park, because like the stuff below is not funded yet, whereas this is included in the operating. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Want to comment about the gal that wants to make a donation for the pavilion for 4-H? She still wants to do it. Looking in and visiting with some other people, and so eventually I'm sure that'll all come out to the public.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions on the county park budget? If not, okay, thank you, Lisa. Next, we'll go to the
Yep, thank you.
capital improvement budget. Is there anything on that?
So I guess the capital improvements one, I'm not sure what we have coming up in 2024 yet. I was just gonna kind of let the commission decide what they wanted on that one. And so I left it open. I don't really have anything specifically requested. We moved the Southwest Multi-County Corrections payment from the capital improvements budget to the capital projects budget where the jail is. We did that in 2022.
Any comments on the capital improvement budget?
There's just not really a budget yet until
Right,
the
that's
commission, until you guys decide if you want certain things to come out of there that have been proposed, so.
Dean, if I may comment with the capital improvement, we did quite a bit of upgrades to that battlefield shop. I think we're in pretty good shape. We've been kind of putting off doing a little bit of tin work. We've got some issues with the tin on the outside, so I don't think it'll be a whole lot, but that's only I can foresee in all three of our shops that's gonna need any work this year.
Do you see any other projects? for capital
Well, we're
improvement?
going to start the front step project next week. Going to take about 3 to 4 weeks, we believe. We're hoping to be able to handle that through the department, but if it doesn't get there, we may have to come in for a small request in this fund to fund that one when it's all said and done. And we won't know until we're done.
I couldn't think of anything major other than maybe the LEC stuff that building repair stuff. I didn't really think of anything else. I mean, we replaced the HVAC system this year in the courthouse. That was a big expense, but I didn't really think of anything that was big expense. I don't think anything needs a new roof. So I hope not.
We'll let you know.
So just whatever the commission would like to put in for that, if you guys know of something.
Any other discussion or comments? We'll have to go to the emergency budget.
So we're not actually collecting any taxes on the emergency account, and that's its current balance. I mean, it's great to have if something big comes up, especially with big blizzard or snowstorm. I mean, the money is there, but we're not actually increasing the balance. The only thing that goes in there to increase the balance is telecommunications tax. So, I think that's kind of a fund for you guys to use as emergencies come up, and that's kind of your cushion for those emergencies.
Okay. Any other comments and questions on that? And the last of the governing board budget. Any comments on that? It's pretty similar to last year. Is there any really changes there? Next, then we go to the general fund, to the revenues and expenditures coming in.
Okay, so I just take all of, especially the expenditure sheets. I take your numbers from the different general fund departments that we discussed, and I plug them in to give kind of some totals. You'll see you have $1 if you did the dollar raise where you're at, $1.25 where you're at, department head proposed, and then what you guys would actually like to be at. There is a lot that I have to kind of fill in on my own, and those are mainly non-departmental expenses. You know, things like insurance reserve, retirement, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. Like, I just kind of have to see where it's at for mental health. I mean, I just kind of go off of what was spent last year and where we're at this year and plug in a number for that, because I guess we don't know how many will need mental health services.
What are we hearing on for insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield? And you've got a 0 right now.
Oh.
Well, I mean, it's a 0. I mean, percent wise, we're not up. It's at 650, just what like 23 was.
So 2023, I did actually, so I know it was approved at 650, but we're actually more at like 600 going halfway through the year. We're at 295, and so I predict by the end of the year we'll probably be at about 600. Okay. So that's why I put it at 650, because that's still an increase. But they haven't really told us an exact percentage yet. I don't know if Joetta's heard anything. No. Yeah. So I just kind of put in a $50,000 buffer there, and that's, I don't really know what else to do with that.
Well, what 23 was 650, and you've got 24 or 650, or
Yep. So 650 and 23 was approved because that's before we knew how much the full transition was, and so we would probably be fine at 6.
Okay.
Right. So I just did it at 650 to give it a little bit of something. And then we did add the open records request line for expenditures, because Consolidated does charge us to pull those emails and stuff off the server. And then I also in the revenue line have an open records request revenue line. If they go over the allotted hours and stuff and they want those records, I mean,
Yeah, we can charge for after the first hour, but we can also charge for, I believe, I have to look at the statute again exactly, but reasonable costs incurred. So if we ask Consolidated to run a search on a bunch of emails, and I think they're charging us like $115 an hour or something like that, we can request that from the requester before we even ask Consolidated to start running that, which I guess for any big open records request is the plan I have, is to ask for a estimate of time from Consolidated so that we can send that to the requester, get that money up front, which again is we're able to do under the law, and then before we even start having Consolidated run them, and so we don't end up in the hole.
Sale of county properties, holding, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna sell a bunch of properties or if we're not, so I just kind of have to put a dollar amount. That's just something that gets kind of amended at the end of the year, depending on if we sell them or not. So a lot of those are, I will be honest, are just kind of guesses. Audit fees, I put in 35,000. It might actually be less than that. I didn't increase it from the previous year or anything like that. It was at 35,000 the previous year. I just kept it at the 35 because I think we're gonna be lower, so.
Any questions on that?
Line item 60 on that. DH did not give a proposed.
So the ones that are highlighted, yep, department head did not give a proposed salary, so they're just going with whatever the commission decides. They're not proposing it. Anything. A lot of them are individual departments. So it's just their salary.
Right.
So they don't really want to propose anything. So I just had to fill in a number for them to get a total.
Any other discussion? Did we want to discuss this federal grant money for training and conference now, or is for the budget, or do you want to do that after? Guess we talked about that being used, that money being used for that, but I guess I don't think it was officially made a motion on it. I think the how much is in that grant now, we received
Yeah.
it.
So I'm gonna receive the other tract here as soon as I fix my login for the federal thing again. But we should have about $100,000 in there. And I think what was proposed is that there is some department heads and staff that would like to go to some trainings that are outside, not the usual budget, like maybe they're in South Dakota or something, or farther away. And so what I was hoping the board would be open to, instead of building in a one-time training into their budget for the year, is that the department heads could apply to go to that conference with the commission out of that $100,000 of grant money that the county has. And so it's already has its own fund, and none of it has been used yet. There's 50,000 in there currently, and we should have another 50,000 in the next month or so. So I was hoping for 2024 is that, I know Joetta has a conference coming up that's kind of out of the ordinary and out of state, and that would be something she could apply towards. And then it would come out of there.
Any other discussion on that? If not, look for a motion to approve that for that purpose.
And that was the definition of the grant?
It's an LATCF tribal consistency grant. We do not, we got it from the federal government. I filled out the paperwork for it. And so it can be used for anything but lobbying or pensions.
Okay. I remember when you applied, I remember when it was awarded, I just didn't remember I just want to make sure if we get a grant that we are spending the monies in line with what the grant intention was, right? So I guess having said that, if that all falls in order, I would move that we set up this fund basically as was just explained to us, to help our staff improve and go to conferences and do those kind of things, I guess.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
And all those would be approved by the full commission.
This is training and conferences?
Yes.
Yep, kind of anything out of the ordinary NDACO, our yearly conferences.
They'd become before the Board of Commissioners for
Yep.
approval. Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Messer.
Aye.
Commissioner Marsh.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Clares.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carried. Next, as far as budgeting, anything else we need to discuss? I mean, are we gonna discuss the compensation for employees now, or are we gonna wait till we get the total figures and have another meeting later this month before our October meeting, or?
Well, I do have in your proposed budgets, I do have the total figures at $1 and $1.25. If the commission is looking to go one of those ways. And then if you want to decide if you're leaning towards $1 or $1.25, and I have the totals on your page of what the difference in that, and I highlighted those so you're able to look. Then depending on where you go, I can take out the other columns and I can do a more completed budget, and we could do another meeting before the October meeting to kind of go through some of the finer details of like what you asked with the jail and those kind of questions. For revenue side, I also provided you a fund balance sheet as of today, just so you could kind of see where some of those accounts are sitting at. And I also added the column as of today for actual revenues received through today. Just so you could kind of see where that's at. I think our biggest increase in revenue was definitely our interest income with doing the sweep accounts. And as far as, Corey is holding pretty strong with his contract policing. And then the recorders do have quite a bit of revenue coming in from their recording fees. I think that state aid distribution is still about where it is, but we have to keep in mind that state aid distribution is a whole nother beast by itself, and it has its own sheet and percentage-wise. And I think that that's something that the commission should go through individual line and see if you want to change any of those percentage distributions. And state aid distribution and oil and gas are both dependent on where oil and gas is. So if oil and gas goes down, state aid distribution will go down. Same thing with the oil and gas revenue side. So we just had to kind of be aware of that. The other ones didn't really have a bunch of increases. I mean, they're kind of all within line. For revenue side, like I said, mainly just interest income, because we're going to be well over the $1 million threshold in interest income, so that made a big difference. So when I'm looking at this, for example, if you went with actual revenue, so you would have to think our actual revenue is going to be, probably somewhere around what it was last year with the increases and decreases. Maybe a little bit, it'll be higher. With the interest income. So you could fund without cutting into any reserve lines, you could fund either the $1 or the $1.25, and you wouldn't be going into any deficit. unless you plan on moving a large sum from the general to a different account.
So, just a quick question. How long would it take you to, based on what was just presented to us, to do a revenue and proposed expense kind of a balance sheet or spreadsheet? So, I mean, is it hours? Is it days?
You mean it for your totals? Because this is, you already have your total expense
Yeah, so I mean.
versus revenue.
On the general, I'm missing the one sheet, where it shows the, I have it, I just can't find it now.
So. Okay, I got you.
I'm missing that sheet right
Which
there.
one?
That one.
Your tab right there, expenditures.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm looking for the revenue side that shows that where the interest is in there. and-
Oh, that's the one I just gave you.
Yes.
Okay.
Hand up here.
Okay.
So that 23,
This is what you mean?
Yeah.
Yep. That's as of today, where we're at.
Okay, there.
you
Got it.
expect, so we're here today on 9/19, right? You
Mhm.
expect that we'll get there, though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 22. Guess 2.
I don't know if anybody would be interested in taking a 10-minute break. Some of these numbers I would like to do, we have the numbers as of 9/19.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see some projections 12/31, end of year.
For the revenue side?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and the big one that, and we talked about it a little earlier, and you said we could potentially look into it. So under the general fund, we had levied 5.5 million last year into that account. Year-to-date, 9/19, 4.2 million. And normally, the bulk, the vast majority of the property taxes are paid prior to the penalty periods. And I'm just kind of curious as to why we have that.
We can kind of see who
Yeah, see
hasn't
what's out
paid
there.
yet, like
Yeah.
what's
I mean,
laying out there.
Are we gonna get the 5.5, or where will we get to, based on, I know a lot of people hold to the last minute, pay their taxes at the end of the year, kind of stuff, even with the penalty, but.
So on the expense budget, you've got, go back here, you've got it proposed, on salaries, you've got it proposed as $1.25 or $1. But we also, I mean, not every department
And we
follows.
have a department head one.
Yes.
Yeah, so the department head one, for the departments that didn't give me a proposed salary, I just went with the $1.25 for those. And then most of the other departments did.
Well, yeah, a lot of department heads did give a recommendation, and it was maybe more or less than $1 or $1.25.
Right, so it is very varied on the department head side.
Yeah.
And so, and based on those totals, when I look at it, it's actually pretty close in the same amount. as the $1.25 column. And so I think, the department heads that recommended more, $1.40, whatever else have you. I think that, that kind of just made up that little bit of difference there on why it would be a little bit higher on the department head side.
What is the process? Are we gonna go through every budget sheet and approve that, and that will end up in your spreadsheet as the salaries, right?
Well, if you decide on the salaries and if you're going with the $1 or $1.25, then I would like to still have another meeting before the October meeting and go through some of our revenue state aid stuff. And if you guys want to move around any of the oil and gas, because it's really hard to get totals until I know what you're thinking as far as moving stuff around.
I think his question is, do we approve each department budget individually? And the answer to that question is yes.
Yes.
That would be a meeting before the meeting, or today.
Or today.
Or if the commission wants to decide if they want to do $1 or $1.25, and then they want me to put that together, and then you approve the department head budgets, because I use their numbers all the way across, except for the salaries. And then you would have a completed total one that you could decide in before the October. You could do that too.
Do you still need a recess to get something?
Well, I think it would be, unless we're gonna have another special meeting somewhere, and I'm
I do a
totally.
recess, I can be here today, I don't care.
Yeah, just to be able to do some, quick calculations in my mind.
Yes,
anyway.
and then we can still do another meeting if we need to.
Yeah, okay.
How much time are you thinking?
10 minutes.
Okay, we'll do a recess here for 15 minutes till 11:15. Next, I guess, discussion, did you get the information you need, Commissioner Messer?
Very close, and so thank you for that, and I'm much more comfortable in, right now than I was 15 minutes ago. So what I'd like to see, and I'm open to suggestion, is let's agree on the compensation number portion of the budget, at least, and then we can come back a week from now, let her do all the calculations, fit all the numbers in, put another worth of estimations together, and do that now, and then go from there if everybody's willing to meet one more time before our October 3rd meeting. So
I'm good with that. As much as we can accomplish today would be great. As far as the compensation, the difference between the two numbers over the year would be what? I mean, I'd be in favor of the $1.25, but I don't know what the difference in the two numbers is over the, and it's probably written in there, and without my glasses, I didn't see it.
it's like 32,000.
So I'd be good with going to the $1.25. I mean, inflation's killing everybody anyway.
What's the difference between the $1.25 and the proposed department heads?
Oh, that part, yeah, that's a good question.
So it's about $7,000. The only thing is that if you go, and I have no problem, I use the department heads' proposed numbers across all other lines except for salary. So where you see that about $7,000 difference is for some of the department heads that proposed more than $1.25. And that's what's reflecting into that.
Thank you.
So then do we need to go through each department head salary and?
Well, here's an
We just
idea.
want to go flat out.
Here's an idea. In my opinion, in my meetings with department heads, I asked everyone, at what point do department heads kind of hit the ceiling, right?
That's a good
For
question,
what
yep.
we're doing. So my attitude at this point would be, let's kind of separate that. Let's figure out whatever the compensation is for our employees, and then kind of figure out department heads, because I think it's my last count, there's 3 or 4 department heads that are outside of those numbers that are being proposed, and I think that should be a separate discussion with additional information.
Perfect.
Agree. So then I'll guess I'll make the motion, we go at $1.25 on employees, not department heads, and we discuss department heads separately.
I would second that.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Roll call vote then. Commissioner Marsh,
Aye.
Commissioner Messer,
Aye.
Commissioner Claris,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
chair votes aye, motion carried.
So I think the other big component that you had was some of the proposed portfolio changes as far as compensation wise. If you wanted to, the ones that were highlighted, that were their actual boxes were green. So that way I am able to plug in if that's what you guys are going with, because they're above and beyond the $1.25. Does the commission want to go over those, or?
About how many of those are there?
Well, there's one in my budget, and then,
There's 5 or 6 at least.
there's a
right?
couple.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could we just make that determination a week from now? So give each of us more time to dive into that?
Okay, so what number, so $1.25 for across the board for employees, so what number would you like me to use in the proposed for the department heads? Do you want me to do the ones with the updated portfolio changes?
Or their recommendation?
Or the recommendation for the department heads?
And we can go.
Okay.
We can change that number
'Cause-
up or down from.
And some of them might have gotten additional duties, job description might have changed a little bit, so that would be something to take into effect. Otherwise, I mean, the other ones that are that way, it's just say leave them at $1.25, and let's just
Okay.
review the 5 that need to be done.
Okay. Yep. That works for me.
Good with that.
Anything else? You need to decide on a date for next week then, True, there's another meeting, or?
What works?
What is today, Tuesday?
Tuesday's the 26th.
I have Community action meeting at 10 o'clock on the 26th, so I wouldn't be available then. But
Seems like it'd be a pretty quick conversation. So we do Tuesday at 9 AM?
Well, we're gonna have to dive into some of the, did you want to dive into some of the state aid distribution, oil and gas stuff at all on the next meeting, or are you saving that?
I think if we're gonna change that, that's a year-long conversation. I really
Okay.
do. I mean, because
So we can wait on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
what if we can,
Yeah, but you said you have a 10 o'clock meeting.
I have a 10 o'clock on the 26th, so
well, can we do it at 8:30?
8:30, next Tuesday. Okay.
We better be done.
8:30 then?
Yep.
Okay.
Trip to South Dakota out of the water, but that's fine.
You can call it too.
Huh?
You can call it too.
Maybe. I find that's why personally I don't like doing it.
So we're gonna have one line now on the wage.
Right, we're gonna eliminate 2 of the columns, have 1 instead of 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
Yeah. That works.
to go over. I think that covered mine.
Or did we establish next Tuesday?
Mhm.
I would move we adjourn then. Unless there's something else.
Anything else that we need to do? Or- Okay, a motion to adjourn, I have a second.
Second?
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried.
Great.
So these,
Oh, that gives me a lot to work with.
okay, thank you. So these